Hello and welcome to Beyond the Lane. We're going to look straight into the Champions League game tomorrow night against Bodo Glimt, a team we know a little bit about after our games last season. In terms of head-to-heads, we have only ever played each other twice, and that was the semi-final home and away leg from the Europa League on our road to victory in Bilbao. So in terms of games, both clubs having very similar run of form in the last 5 games, both teams with 3 wins and 2 draws. However, our last game was a draw, a very difficult game against Wolves, made difficult by ourselves, but their last game was a win. In terms of goals in those last 5 games, Bodo Glimt have scored 15, conceded 6, whereas we've scored 10 and conceded 3. So in terms of goals to concession ratio, it's probably pretty even on that regard. Both teams showing that they can score goals. However, the more interesting fact for us is that we're really struggling to score from open play. Certainly over the last, I think, 4 or 5 league games, I don't think we've scored a single goal, from open play. So it's a little bit of a concern for me, especially when we're looking at some of the players who aren't injured. We'll look at the team news momentarily, but continuing on with that vein of form in terms of what our head-to-heads looks like against this team. We, as I say, have only played twice, both of those being at the semi-finals, I've already mentioned. However, with us winning 2-0 in the away leg and 3-1 at home, that 3-1 victory was a well-remembered night with 3 academy players scoring goals in that game. It was a very, very good game, good goals. However, it is a notoriously difficult game to go away to, and we will only be playing against them once. So we really need to make it count tomorrow night when we play in Norway. So BG have lost their last 5 games against English competition, one of those also being a 1-0 defeat to Arsenal. So in terms of that statistic, hopefully we can continue that on Tuesday night and make that 6 games against English opposition getting beaten. So our game against them last season also ended a run of 5 games at home of wins for Bodo Glimt. So it was also another ender for them in terms of coming up against English opposition, and a little feather in our cap as well, because they were looking really solid. When you looked at the teams that they had beaten last season, like Napoli, it really showed that they were a team that know how to play football, and the fact that they are actually playing exceptionally well in their home league as well as their cup competitions goes to show that they are a team who can score goals and can be difficult to play against, as we've seen, because it was quite difficult games despite running out the victors in those games. It was a bit of a hard show, and it took a wee bit of time before we got rolling. And then once we got the goals, it just started to change and break the game down a bit for them. But we have won 3 out of 4 of our away games in Europe as well. So again, the stats are kind of stacking in our favour. And you've got to remember this also includes the last 2 seasons, or at least last season, when we had Postecoglou with his cavalier all-out attack attitude in games up until the last run of games taking us to the final last season. So one thing for Thomas Frank is that if he wins this game against Bodo Glimt, he will be the first Spurs manager to record back-to-back European victories in his first games in charge. And that includes Redknapp, Pochettino, Mourinho and Conte. All of them had 1 win and a draw, apart from, I think it was Redknapp or Pochettino who had a draw. I think it might have been Redknapp. So in terms of statistics, everything seems to go in our favour for tomorrow night. However, if we go and have a look at actually our current form and how we've been playing, we are really, really struggling at the moment to put the ball into the back of the net. And despite the fact that over those last 5 games we played, we have scored 10 goals. If you have a look at what we've scored and how we've scored, they've either been from set pieces or they've been own goals. So not really great or good news for us in that front. And in terms of the injuries, we've got the usual suspects there, but the ones who look like they could or would make a comeback for this game are potentially not going to be there at all. Ben Davies probably will be out till next week, although not a starter. He is a really good experienced bench filler, especially for the European games. Tail hasn't been selected, so that really kind of messes with the centre forward options for us because Moani and Solanke are both still out injured. Solanke hopefully back into training next week, and Moani hopefully the week and a half, 2 weeks after this game. So not in time for this one. Unfortunately, it does mean that Richie will have to start up front and is likely to play that whole game. But we'll talk about it when we look at the forward options for the game. So in goal, we'll be starting with Vicario. Kinski did very well against Doncaster, but the Champions League is going to be Vicario's domain until or unless Kinski can displace him at some point through, which may actually come to say I've already made a prediction. I think Kinski will be our number one by the end of the season, and I stick to that. Looking at the way he plays the ball at his feet, certainly in the game against Doncaster, and that was a really tough game for us. He showed composure on the ball as well as being able to constantly get two hands behind it when things were coming in at him. Vicario did do that in the game. However, it's that push away that he always does when the ball comes in, especially in tight packed boxes. It just doesn't work. It always leaves us open, and we ended up conceding that goal to Wolves. So the back four is going to be left back Spence, Vicario and Van de Ven in the middle, with Pedro Porro starting on the right. The experiment with Porro and Doki just didn't work particularly well. Wolves, so I think we'll revert to the original back four. We may get surprised with Ndoki starting in the left, but certainly it gives better balance when there's only one of them on the field. And I think Spence is probably going to be the one pushing on for that one. But Frank has surprised us in team selections, so I think it will be one or the other in that left back slot. In the middle of the park, it's going to have to be Paulinho. At the end of the day, this guy is playing out of his skin. As I said in previous videos, loan signing and just take him for the season. But the way he's playing, we need to either look to sign him permanently in January or make that a permanent move at the end, because the man is saving us left, right, and centre, not just in his tackle contributions in the middle of the park or as a centre back against Doncaster, but also in the goals that are saving our backsides and pulling us out of the fire in almost every game by scoring us goals, whether they are nice side-footed balls into the right-hand corner or overhead kicks on the 6-yard line. The man is a legend at the moment in that shirt. And beside him, we're probably going to be looking at either Bentancur or Sarr. Sarr did not play against Wolves, and there was chat that he's maybe picked up a knock, but it may just be that he's being rested for this game tonight. So I think we'll either see Sarr or Bentancur in beside there. It's difficult. I would like to see Xavi operating in on that number 10 role, but I think what we'll see is Bentancur going there simply because our left-hand side has been so weak, with a number of players being able to play inside that role. No one has managed to be able to make that their own just yet, and I think for that reason only Xavi will be starting on the left. Odobert, Tail previously in the league, obviously not selectable for Champions League. We've got Brennan as well, just not being able to nail down that left wing slot. Kudus playing on the right has to be, when he got switched to the left against Wolves, he just seemed to lose all kind of composure and was not as effective as coming down that right. And Kudus and Pedro just have a really good relationship, bombing up and down that right-hand side, but also being able to cover as well as go in on the overlaps and always looking to put those balls into the box. It was very disjointed between Xavi and Ndogi on the left against Wolves. The overlap wasn't quite there. Xavi was playing balls out wide, expecting someone to come in on them, when actually it was him that was supposed to be coming through on those balls. So I think Xavi has to start on that left, just because he is just so much better in that pocket than he is playing with in the middle with either Johnson or Odobert down that left-hand side. In the middle, we have no choice but to play Richie there. I think what you might find later on towards the end of the game, if Richie is starting to look a bit tired, we might actually see him coming off and potentially Brennan Johnson slotting into that role there, just simply to attack balls in at the back or back post or so. But again, Thomas Frank just has this way of selecting different formations and playing players into positions or playing people in roles that you just don't expect for games that are coming. I think we'll probably be looking at a very similar 4-3-3 again for tomorrow night's game. It's a very difficult one to call as well. I think that there is the opportunity for goals, I'm really not 100% sure as to where they're going to be coming from for Spurs, because Richie's putting in a lot of fight, but he's just not getting the good enough service to be able to do those goals from open play. At the end of the day, goals are goals, and it doesn't matter where they come from set piece, but it is a little concern for me that we're just not creating enough opportunities in open play to put that ball in the back of the net. So we really do need some support very, very quickly for Moani. And it might just be one of those ones that in some games we need to throw Dane Scarlett on. I mean, the guy's been kept, he hasn't been put on loan, so there has to be a plan there somewhere for him. And if Moani and Solanke are both out injured for the next week or two, then we need to have that option to give Richie a rest, because if he gets injured, then we're really knackered in trying to play up front, pardon the pun. So I think we could be looking at 2-0. If everything goes right on the night, then I think we could win 2-0. Bodo Glimt are a very difficult team to play. They're already in swing in their season as well, so they're going to be really fit compared to us. They are a difficult team to play with, no doubt about it, when we see the scalps that they claimed last season. And we only really started to change those games once we put a goal and went up against them. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for us in the game. But if we can get ourselves a goal, then I see no reason why we can't get another. And I think 2 would be a good result for us. I really don't want to see a draw, and we cannot lose. When you look at the table, we're sitting in 14th despite sitting on a win. But most of the teams above us have all scored 2, 3, or 4 goals and have really good goal differences in that league. And it's only the top 8 that are going to be going through. So we really need to make the most when we're coming up against opposition like this. And this is no disrespect to Bodo Glimt, but in the grand scheme of the teams that we will be coming up and playing against in the Champions League, that is a game that has to result in us getting 3 points and a number of goals. So fingers crossed that we can do it tomorrow night. And we will see, and I will put a video out going over the whole match play by play and seeing what went right, what went wrong, and what we need to be looking forward to in the games coming afterwards. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Come on, you Spurs.